While some people worry about the possible annihilation of our species due to climate change or environmental degradation, they completely forget that the biggest threat to the continuity of our world comes from outer space. Asteroids and comets have caused drastic changes several times in the course of Earth's history. For example, 66 million years ago, an asteroid wiped out the dinosaurs and turned Earth into an inhospitable world for years. It can seem like impact events like these are far away, but those who think so are mistaken. NASA keeps a list of the most dangerous asteroids and comets. 4 of them could collide with Earth in the coming decades or centuries, causing another apocalypse. 1998 OR2 narrowly missed Earth. The object, named 1998 OR2, was discovered on July 24, 1998 by astronomers in the Near-Earth Asteroid Tracking Program at the Haleakala Observatory in Hawaii. These scientists in Hawaii have made it their mission to protect the Earth and have been observing the sky and near-Earth orbits virtually around the clock. Asteroids and comets can suddenly appear out of nowhere due to their small size and luminosity, and that's what makes the danger so unpredictable. 1998 OR2 is one of the largest potentially dangerous asteroids and also one of the brightest, which makes it more visible from Earth than many other asteroids. 1998 OR2 orbits Earth in a highly eccentric orbit and could one day be on a collision course. At about a mile in diameter, the asteroid could be large enough to wipe out an entire nation and cause worldwide natural disasters. The asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs had a diameter of 9 miles and crashed into the sea off the coast of Mexico. Within a few seconds, everything within a radius of several thousand miles was suddenly destroyed. Tidal waves reached the African and European continents. The Earth's crust burst open. Worldwide tremors led to earthquakes and volcanic eruptions, and a toxic mixture polluted the air. Due to immense fires and long-term climate changes, the Earth was never the same after the impact. When 1998 OR2 came very close to Earth in 2020, the all-clear was given. It was clear that the asteroid, known for more than 20 years, would remain at a safe distance. This allowed researchers and amateur astronomers to enjoy the flyby at their leisure and take advantage of unique observing opportunities. Thanks to images from the Arecibo Observatory in Puerto Rico, the eerie visitor from space even got something like a face. Astronomers joked that it even looked like the boulder was wearing a respirator mask to match what was happening on Earth. These images, also from the Arecibo Institute, show the shape and rotation of the celestial body very clearly. Observing asteroids is a special astronomical task to which certain groups of researchers around the world have devoted themselves. It's not at all easy to observe the small, fast-flying, and rotating boulders with telescopes. Because many asteroids are pitch black and made of rocks and minerals that absorb almost all sunlight, they hardly reflect any light. Not infrequently, the chunks appear quite unexpectedly and are then already dangerously close to Earth. 1998 OR2 remained at a safe distance of 6.3 million kilometers during its flyby on April 28th and 29th, 2020. Overall, 1998 OR2's closest orbit is about 1,300,000 miles from Earth's orbit. Because the orbits of asteroids change, sometimes drastically, over decades and centuries, they can end up on collision courses. The orbital movements of asteroid 1998 OR2 are known with certainty until 2027 and have been classified as harmless. Experts suspect that this asteroid could become dangerous to Earth only on a timescale of hundreds, if not thousands of years. Zurich astronomer Peter Engelmayer has managed to spot the asteroid in the night sky and even captured it on a unique film sequence. So we don't have to fear 1998 OR in the foreseeable future. But what about all the other asteroids that have near-Earth orbits? The top 4 most dangerous asteroids. To estimate the danger of the known asteroids, astronomers use the so-called Palermo scale. In this scale, values like the impact risk, the destruction potential, and the remaining time until impact are summarized and expressed in a positive or negative value. The scale is named after the Italian city of Palermo, where astronomer Giuseppe Piazzi discovered the first asteroid in 1801. For decades and centuries to come, these 4 will be at the top of the list of potentially hazardous asteroids. 29075, 1950 DA, with a Palermo value of -1.42. 101955 Bennu, with a Palermo value of -1.69. 2000 SG 344, with a Palermo value of -2.84. 2008 JL3, with a Palermo value of -3.23. If the value is negative, there is currently only a reduced probability of an impact. If the value rises to 0 or reaches a positive value, things get serious. In recent years, there has been one asteroid that reached a positive number and several smaller impacts that were not even predictable. 2019 OK. Asteroid 2019 OK passed over Earth on July 24th and 25th, 2019, at a distance of only less than 43,000 miles. That's only about 1/5 the distance of the Moon, so it could be considered pretty darn close. At only about 300 feet in diameter, 2019 OK is a rather small chunk. Asteroids of this class are called city killers by researchers. They are enough to cause damage to entire cities and regions and kill many thousands of people. What was particularly frightening about this asteroid was that it appeared on the radar screens of the observatory in Hawaii only one day before its flyby. Asteroid over Russia. In these images, an asteroid only about 60 feet wide can be seen over the Russian city of Chelyabinsk. It appeared out of nowhere in February 2013 and exploded about 20 miles above the city. Fortunately, there was no impact, but the explosive force of the asteroid triggered a shock wave that destroyed more than 1,000 buildings and injured 1,500 people. 2019 OK, which was more than twice as large, would have surely brought down the buildings in a city like this, injuring and killing many people. Apophis. On June 19, 2004, a NASA release shocked the world. Exactly what researchers had hoped wouldn't happen had happened. The asteroid named Apophis had reached a value of +1.1 on the Palermo scale. The impact had been predicted for April 14, 2029. Planetary defense measures were underway worldwide. Then researchers gave an initial all clear. The asteroid's predicted course had changed. Apophis, named after the ancient Egyptian god of chaos and darkness, reaches about the size of the Empire State Building in New York and also could have wiped out an entire swath of land. Initially, the asteroid was back on a collision course with a new warning for the year 2068, but even that warning was corrected shortly thereafter, and NASA announced an impact in 2068 is no longer possible, and our calculations show no risk of impact for at least the next 100 years. 2009 JF1. On May 4, 2009, asteroid 2009 JF1 was discovered by the Catalina Sky Survey telescope on Mount Lemmon in the U.S. state of Arizona. Initially, the chunk sent the world into an uproar. According to initial reports, the asteroid was about the size of the Cheops Pyramid in Egypt, and the Palermo value was -2.88 with an unknown trend. Shortly thereafter, the observation was corrected. 2009 JF1 turned out to be only about a 30-foot chunk and then flew safely past Earth. Nevertheless, researchers continue to have this asteroid on the list of dangerous projectiles from space, because 2009 JF1 is extremely difficult to observe, and the risk it poses in the future cannot be calculated with any certainty. 2022 EB5. 2022 EB5 was astronomers' nightmare last year. It was the 5th asteroid since the beginning of the century to be discovered just hours before entering Earth's atmosphere. At 7:24 p.m. on March 11, 2022, the telescope located at the Paiskatu Observatory in Hungary reported the sighting, and by 9:23 p.m., the asteroid was already entering Earth's atmosphere southwest of Jan Mayen Island near the Arctic. The chunk hurtled towards Earth at a speed of 10.6 miles per second, releasing a force of about 4 kilotons of TNT as it exploded in the air. The tremors were felt in Greenland and Norway, and observers in northern Iceland could see a bright flash on the horizon. Defense strategies of NASA and ESA. Finally, of course, the question remains what possibilities we humans would have to defend ourselves against an asteroid that would be of destructive size and whose collision course would be known in time before impact. Who doesn't immediately think of the Armageddon method? In the movie of the same name, NASA sent a squad of daring oil drilling experts to blast the asteroid. In fact, there are real plans to do so, but blasting a large asteroid could cause hundreds of small chunks to hurtle uncontrollably towards Earth or hit other asteroids, putting them on a collision course. Other approaches involve pulling a destructive asteroid out of its orbit via a gravitational shift. This would require a large object, such as a space capsule or satellite, to come close to the asteroid. The object's gravitational pull could gradually deflect the asteroid from its orbit. However, sufficient lead time is needed for this action. It would take years to pull an asteroid out of its orbit in this way. The fact is, we need to know more about asteroids. In 2014, ESA's Philae spacecraft landed on a comet for the first time. Since the mission was a great success, there will likely be more probes flying to asteroids and comets in the future to study them. The DART mission is also an ESA project. DART stands for Double Asteroid Deflection Test. The idea behind it is simple: to launch a space probe at high speed at an asteroid and deflect it from its trajectory. The asteroid Didymus was chosen as the training target, together with its moon, Dimorphos. It orbits the Sun at such a safe distance that no one is endangered by the project. If the DART mission succeeds, this approach could also be used to push a dangerous asteroid from its orbit and protect the Earth. 1, 2, or 3 points. Over the decades, dozens of videos and photographs of light sightings around the moon have accumulated. Sometimes 1, 2, or 3 conspicuous lights can be seen. Even when the moon is brightly lit, objects are sighted that do not appear as bright as light, but are visible as dark spots in front of the moon. Scientists explain the bright lights as the Transient Lunar Phenomena, or TLP. Reports of unusual light observations on the moon date back to the 6th century. Even in the present day, scientists have observed lights, color changes, or even bright darkenings that cause temporary changes in the appearance of the moon. The phenomena have been systematically cataloged since 1958, but no one has yet found an explanation, despite the extremely strange TLP phenomena. Respected scientific circles do not want to know anything about aliens and their activities on the moon. Allegedly, gases escaping from the moon's interior and reflecting the sun's rays cause phenomena such as the red light we saw at the beginning. Other TLPs glow blue, green, or even purple, and everything is said to be completely normal and explainable. TLPs range from small, point-like lights to larger, glowing areas. Sometimes they appear as short-lived flashes or as subtle, changing shades of color on the lunar surface. A real flying saucer from 1975? It is often rumored that even Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin were not completely alone on the moon during their moonwalk at the end of the 1960s and saw several spaceships observing them. Allegedly, NASA wants to cover everything up, but that's not quite true. This video, which was allegedly recorded by James Irwin, an astronaut on the Apollo 15 mission, was never concealed or covered up. However, nobody wanted to admit that this thing looks an awful lot like a flying saucer. The official line was that the apparent object could also be a reflection of light. But look for yourself at the shadow it casts below it, which clearly shows that the disc-like object is hovering above the surface of the moon. Something very similar can be seen here. Again, NASA claimed it was a rock, but again the shadow reveals something hovering in the air. Could these all be coincidences? Probably not. We don't have any hard evidence of aliens on the moon, but we do have some interesting clues. In the 1970s, the clairvoyant medium Ingo Swann was asked by the FBI to look at the moon via remote viewing. Among other things, Swann saw some highly intelligent aliens mining on the far side of the moon. Fascinatingly, rumors about mining on the moon have been around longer than NASA and modern telescopes. Somehow, centuries ago, people came up with the idea that there were people, or men, living on the moon who were active there, and later it became stories that this man, or men, could be responsible for the moon's glow. Swann had to keep quiet about his mission for 10 years, and then only a small, dedicated community of UFO researchers and paranormal enthusiasts believed him. In the years before his FBI experience, Swan was a respected scientific medium who correctly scanned the atmosphere of Jupiter long before the first probes reached the gas giant. What is happening there? Can you imagine that until 1959, no human had ever seen the far side of the moon? The Russians sent Luna 3 once around the moon that year, but kept most of the images for themselves. So, of course, nobody knew what this nation, which was extremely hostile to the United States during the Cold War, had seen on the far side of the moon. NASA's Lunar Orbiter 1 did not reach the far side of the moon until 1966, and allegedly, there was not much to see behind the moon's face that we know, apart from a rugged landscape. However, we must also concede that these probes were not able to show details of the lunar surface or recognize aliens mining in a crater. This only became possible much later thanks to high-resolution images. Today, thanks to Google Moon, even amateurs can scan the moon and turn over every stone. This repeatedly leads to astonishing discoveries, and sometimes areas of the satellite images appear suspiciously blurred, which is why it's assumed that we normal Earthlings are not supposed to see some of the things going on there. Is this still normal? Explaining individual lights with TLPs may still make some sense, but what are we to make of 3 lights flying in formation? When NASA once again declares that everything is completely normal, it's probably trying to pull the lunar wool over our eyes, because there are certainly no light phenomena to be seen here that originate from mysterious outgassing from the moon. If we connect the 3 dots, we always end up with the same shape, a typical and easily recognizable triangle. This shape often appears in connection with UFO sightings on the moon and also on Earth. In this photo, the 3 typical lights are so bright that the shape of the spaceship in the middle is recognizable. These flying objects are regularly noticed and reported almost everywhere on Earth. In 2021, these images from Herefordshire in England attracted attention. In the same year, one of these flying triangles appeared over California. And a year later, a very similar UFO was spotted over Karlsruhe. Given this frequency of sightings, we must ask ourselves what these flying objects around the Earth and on the moon want. This question divides even the opinions of UFO enthusiasts and para-researchers. Some believe that the aliens are watching us, and others even assume that extraterrestrial races maintain contact with governments or certain organizations without the normal world population noticing much of it. The moon could be a kind of stopover or base for beings who either want to mine raw materials there, as Ingo Swann said, or keep an eye on us Earthlings. In any case, Ingo Swann said that the aliens he had seen on the moon were not friendly towards humans, and, like Swann himself, they were mentally gifted. When the aliens realized Swann's presence, they became angry, and the FBI immediately aborted the attempt. Of course, we can ask ourselves how this is supposed to work with humans on the moon in the future if there are bad-tempered aliens around. On the other hand, although the moon is much smaller than the Earth, it is also big enough to keep out of the way, and we cannot rule out the possibility that NASA, the FBI, or the US government have not made contact with the men on the moon in the meantime. Fiction or reality? Who hasn't seen the face of Mars, the Martian pyramids, or human and pyramid-shaped apparitions on the moon? In the vast majority of cases, these objects are so-called pareidolia. Our brain creates images from inanimate objects such as stones or sand dunes that have something to do with another thing that is familiar to us. We then see shadows of people, bones, or things and structures that look like buildings. Many of these pareidolia have now been unmasked. Thanks to the latest Mars and Moon probes, such phenomena have been observed and explained from other angles. So among the many UFO and alien sightings, there are certainly a large number of mistakes or even fakes. But what about this? This again looks suspiciously like a pseudo-pyramid on the moon. But wait a minute. There are 8 lights arranged in an exact 90-degree triangle, and nature really doesn't produce anything like that, and this can't be an optical illusion either. The picture led to a lot of speculation, and once again, the ideas about secret, underground alien bases on the moon came to life. Allegedly, there are numerous cavities inside the moon where spaceships, some several hundred meters long, are said to be deposited. Strangely enough, even renowned scientists have now found evidence that the moon is hollow inside. This came about because seismographs recorded moonquakes that resonated so strangely as if the moon was hollow inside. Moonquakes normally occur as very gentle tremors caused by geological processes on the moon. In this case, however, a meteor struck and caused a strong quake that went right through the moon, making the hollow moon phenomenon noticeable for the first time. Psyche, the fascinating metal asteroid. The history of the asteroid Psyche proves that the first discovery of an astronomical object is not always accompanied by a comprehensive decoding of the respective object. We have known of the existence of this cosmic flying body, which orbits in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, since April 17, 1852. At that time, the Italian astronomer Annibale de Gasparis was able to locate the object in the firmament. Psyche was named after the wife of the ancient Greek deity Eros. During its orbit around the Sun, which lasts about 5 years, the asteroid circles our central host star in a distance between 2.5 and 3.3 astronomical units. As you might know by now, an astronomical unit has a value of about 90 million miles, reflecting the approximate average distance between the Sun and the Earth. In terms of its impressive diameter of 150 miles, Psyche is one of the largest objects in the entire asteroid belt. The surface of the celestial body also appears comparatively bright. Psyche has an albedo of 0.12, which means that it reflects 12% of all incident solar radiation. Before the asteroid has rotated once around its own axis, a little more than 4 hours pass. With the help of special radar observations, researchers succeeded in deciphering the material composition of Psyche. Thus, we now know that the object is probably composed mainly of iron and nickel. Experts were puzzled by the fact that no water or water-containing material could be detected on Psyche's surface, a characteristic that is typical for many M-class asteroids. Although recent measurements with the infrared telescope facility in Hawaii indicate that small amounts of bound water exist on the surface of the asteroid, it's generally assumed that they arrived on Psyche in the course of collisions with other celestial bodies. Accordingly, all the evidence we have been able to gather so far about this galactic flying projectile indicates that it's a primarily metallic asteroid. In order to finally get a full look at this fascinating object, NASA announced in January 2017 that it would undertake an unmanned mission to the asteroid's realm as part of the Discovery program. Current plans call for the spacecraft, also appropriately named Psyche, to leave our home planet next year. From 2026, the spacecraft will then orbit the asteroid for a period of 1.5 years. In the course of this ambitious project, NASA scientists hope to be able to decipher many of the great mysteries that still surround the cosmic object. For example, they hope to find out whether Psyche may be the core of a differentiated planetesimal, or in other words, the former building block of a planet. The question of whether, and if so how, Psyche has lost its mantle is also to be answered in the course of the mission. In addition, the exploration of the most important alloying elements added to the iron core and the investigation of the geological surface are among the overriding mission goals. Together with the Psyche spacecraft, the space probe Janus will also leave our blue home planet in August 2022. It will take a closer look at the two double asteroids 35107 1991 VH and 175706 1996 FG3. The total cost of this breathtaking mission is currently estimated at just under $1 billion. In order to move through the gigantic expanses of space, the Psyche probe will rely on solar electric propulsion. To ensure that the hoped-for research results can also be collected, the unmanned spacecraft will in turn be equipped with a high-resolution camera, a gamma spectrometer, and a magnetometer. At the same time, the mission will also be a cosmic test run in which a new type of laser optical communications technology will be used. The corresponding process, called deep space optical communications, is expected to exceed the bandwidth of current radio communications by a factor of 10 to 100. Compelling findings. The fact that it will be several years before the unmanned spacecraft delivers the first measurement results from the immediate vicinity of Psyche does not, of course, mean that the experts will let their research work rest until then. In order to obtain a revealing picture of the astronomical body beforehand, the scientists are relying on the use of the International Radio Telescope Observatory ALMA in the northern Chilean Andes. In particular, the thermal emissions of the asteroid are being observed. Indeed, by observing the heat emitted from the surface of the body, important conclusions can be drawn about its thermal inertia. This includes in particular the research question of how much Psyche's surface heats up during the day and cools down at night. However, since the celestial body is hundreds of millions of miles away from our terrestrial home and appears relatively small compared to other astronomical entities, this task is proving to be an extremely challenging one. Accordingly, many of the previous attempts to analyze the surface of the object using terrestrial infrared detectors yielded inaccurate images consisting of only a few pixels. Ultimately, to obtain a detailed picture of Psyche that was as revealing as possible, scientists combined all the information that had been collected by the 66 radio telescopes of the Ouma facility regarding the asteroid. This step enabled the experts to obtain a more comprehensive impression of Psyche's thermal inertia and to produce 50-pixel images of the celestial body. And indeed, the analysis of these new images was soon to reveal exciting findings. For example, the images show that the object is graced by some regions that deviate significantly from the rest of the average surface temperature. In addition, the scientists realized that Psyche has an unexpectedly high thermal inertia compared to other asteroids. At the same time, the object radiates about 60% less heat than would be expected from an asteroid with such a high thermal inertia. But what is the reason for this? Researchers generally assume that this is due to the fact that the surface of Psyche consists of about 1/3 metal. Therefore, the fact that the incident light reflected from the surface of the asteroid is unpolarized is all the more striking. This means that the direction of the light changes very quickly and in a disorderly fashion, or in other words, in the form of an unpolarized wave, an unexpected characteristic for objects with nearly flat, metallic surfaces. From this, the experts derive the thesis that Psyche's metallic material does not exist as a massive, coherent surface, but rather in the form of many granular accumulations distributed over the entire surface. This would explain the observed scattering of light. Open questions. Should the asteroid consist predominantly of metal, this would mean that it was possibly a planetesimal, or in other words, the precursor of a planet. In this case, it's to be assumed that today's metal asteroid once possessed a mantle and a crust before these components were blown off in the course of a collision with another object. Alternatively, the object may have originally formed in a completely different part of the solar system and was composed of accumulated material accreted quite close to the central host star of our galactic home. If, contrary to expectations, future research should reveal that Psyche is not in fact composed mainly of metal, the object will be a hot candidate for the origin of the so-called mesositerites. These are a group of special stone-iron meteorites, which are characterized by their disordered structure from iron and nickel. It's actually still completely unknown how these cosmic formations originated in detail. It's possible that it was the result of a collision of two powerful differentiated asteroids. When it comes to the question of the origin of the mesositerites, Vesta is also traded again and again as a possible source. With an average diameter of about 310 miles, it's the second largest asteroid in the main belt after Pallas. Although the terrestrial exploration of specialists has already revealed some astonishing results and indications, it's impossible due to the characteristic composition of such asteroids to analyze their exact composition more than fractions of an inch below the surface from the Earth. All the greater, therefore, are the hopes. Puzzling image dropouts. Only very few people are granted the opportunity to leave our blue home planet behind and set off into the gigantic expanses of space. Thanks to modern technology, however, we non-astronauts also have the opportunity to catch a direct glimpse of the cosmos. Anyone who wants to know what an overwhelming sight space travelers live with every day should definitely take a look at the live transmission from the International Space Station ISS. Through the technical eye of the flying webcam, we can marvel at the Earth from the astronaut's perspective, and live 24 hours a day. Some time ago, however, an unpleasant disturbance crept into the Cosmic Live program. The image dropped out for 10 to 15 seconds. A completely normal signal disturbance? Not if convinced UFO hunters like Toby Lund have their way. The alien hunter accuses NASA of having interrupted the transmission quite deliberately. Namely, because something came into the camera's field of vision, which mankind was not allowed to see at any price. According to that, the picture failure was preceded by the appearance of a strange flying object. In detail, it is supposed to have been the futuristic spaceship of a highly developed species. The corresponding scene is said to have been later removed from the NASA archives, because actually, even a communication exchange between the astronauts of the ISS and the crew of the UFO is thought to have taken place. The interpretation of the incident, which took place some days before, strikes a similar tone. Before NASA switched to another camera, a grayish, shimmering object appeared on the horizon. More conservative explanations see its background in a piece of space debris or the moon. Regarding the latter, however, the user who published the image points out that the Earth's satellite appears white. Also, the spacewalk of Alexander Gerst and Reed Wiserman, captured with the camera, is supposed to have been accompanied by an extraterrestrial spaceship in the background. Officially, however, the alleged UFO is said to have been a speck of dust or a lens reflection of the sun. Unfortunately, the quality of the images does not always allow to clarify the background of the sightings with absolute certainty. However, in many cases, the observations could be traced back to known objects, such as space debris, according to the experts. In addition, the fact is, our brains like to play a trick on us in view of such pictures. The so-called pareidolia refers to the phenomenon of recognizing supposed things, patterns, or faces in shapes and structures. Thus, each of us has probably recognized everyday things in passing clouds. The mysterious Martian face, which hit the headlines in the 70s, can also be traced back to this misinterpretation of the human brain. Oumuamua. Oumuamua may boast a special astronomical title. It is the first object observed within the solar system that has been unambiguously classified as interstellar. However, this exciting discovery is overshadowed by a big question mark. We still have no idea what this object even is. When the structure was discovered in 2017, the matter initially seemed clear. The investigation of the orbital properties suggested that we are dealing with a comet. However, this assumption was soon to be shaken. Follow-up observations showed that this mysterious something has no tail or coma. As a result, Oumuamua was classified as an asteroid, only to be granted comet status again a few months later. Moreover, experts soon realized that our interstellar visitor was subject to striking brightness variations that followed a fairly regular rhythm. However, these recurring changes could not be explained by the object's rotation period under study. In fact, it appears that the spacecraft does not rotate around one of its major axes, but is practically tumbling through space. In addition, the scientists could not detect any dust particles in the immediate vicinity of the object. Due to this, the assumption stands that Oumuamua does not accommodate water and consists of rock, or even completely of metal. But what is the real background of this strange visitor? In this connection, the Israeli physicist Avi Loeb led a controversial theory into the field. It could be the solar sail of an extraterrestrial species. According to this theory, the absence of dust and the conspicuous deviation of the trajectory could be well explained by the characteristics of an artificial, extremely thin object. It's also this trajectory which apparently shows non-gravitational influences, which drastically complicates the determination of the origin of the body. To verify whether the structure does indeed have an artificial background, Oumuamua was targeted by the radio telescope at Green Bank Observatory in West Virginia in December 2017. Data were collected over 2 weeks to detect any signals of artificial origin. However, the observation was not expected to provide any clues in this regard, given the fact that Oumuamua has been moving away from us at a speed of about 16 miles per second for quite some time. It seems that this mystery will remain a cosmic mystery forever, but that need not necessarily be the case. In a spectacular maneuver, the missile could be intercepted after all. A solid fuel engine could be ignited, which would literally hurl the corresponding space probe out of the solar system. If and when such a mission will be realized, however, is currently still in the stars. The WOW signal. Mankind has already made several attempts to draw attention to its existence in the gigantic expanses of the cosmos. Let's just think of the so-called pioneer plaques that left our blue home planet in the early 1970s aboard the space probes that gave it its name. The golden plates contain basic information about our species and our position in the universe, and the Voyager Golden Records also provide their potential finders with detailed insights into humanity and our home planet. Whether extraterrestrial discoverers, however, really could decode the cryptic messages by means of the enclosed aids is at this point simply undecided, provided that the Earth is not the only celestial body in the universe that accommodates life. Why did the remaining civilizations undertake no attempts to get into contact with us? A look at the exciting history of the WOW signal shows that they may have already tried. The unique narrowband radio signal recorded by astrophysicist Jerry R. Emin on August 15, 1977, is still considered the most promising candidate when it comes to the question of an extraterrestrial message, given the startling intensity profile, which bore striking similarities to an artificial antenna signal. The lead expert wrote an awestruck "wow" on the document. Although the signal had all the hallmarks of an interstellar communications attempt, the true background of this observation was never uncovered. This was not least because a comparable signal has never been received since. Thus, a natural origin, such as the intense eruption of a pulsar, cannot be excluded. So, will it be up to us again in the future to push interstellar communication attempts? If experts like Stephen Hawking have their way, the answer to this question can only be no, absolutely not. The genius, who died in 2018, gave us an impressive warning to give such ventures a wide berth. Instead, it would be more advisable to try to remain undiscovered for as long as possible. For it could be that extraterrestrial civilizations have no interest at all in a peaceful exchange with us. Rather, Earth could be seen as a welcome source of raw materials to be subjugated and plundered. If we serve up information on a silver platter and it gets into the possession of an aggressive species, it would be easy for them to recognize our weak points and prepare. The birth of the cosmos. To understand why some observations of the James Webb Telescope shake the formation theory of the cosmos, we should first take a look at the Big Bang itself. According to the standard cosmological model, the Big Bang refers to the process that led to the unfolding of the universe some 13.8 billion years ago. Although the term Big Bang sounds extremely martial, it does not mean a gigantic explosion into an existing space. It was rather the space itself which formed together with matter and time from an original singularity. A short classification: in the world of astronomy, singularity describes places where the gravitational force is so strong that the curvature of space-time diverges, or in simple words, is infinite. But how is it at all possible to reconstruct the starting point of the cosmos nowadays? Well, in this respect, the cosmos grants us a natural assistance. As is well known, the universe is not a rigid, unchanging construct, but one that has always been expanding. If we now look at the expansion of the universe backwards, we finally reach a point where the energy and matter density become infinite. The most outstanding evidence for the Big Bang theory is the detection of the cosmic microwave background radiation. After the birth of the cosmos, matter and radiation were initially in thermal equilibrium. In the course of the expansion of the universe, both the temperature and the density of this coupled mixture decreased. About 380,000 years after the Big Bang, temperature values of about 4,941 degrees Fahrenheit allowed electrically neutral hydrogen to form. Since the free electrons and protons involved in this so-called recombination were now missing, radiation could no longer interact with matter, and the cosmos became transparent. And the almost isotropic microwave background radiation, which still fills the universe, originates from exactly that epoch. However, exactly how and when the first stars and galaxies in the universe were formed is uncertain. And as we know, the James Webb Telescope is designed to help track down this fundamental question. Farewell to the Big Bang? The bottom line is that the Big Bang theory is considered the leading explanation for the origin of the universe. But does this general acceptance also mean that this common thesis actually corresponds to reality? That experts were sometimes drastically wrong over the course of time already shows a short view of the research past. According to this, the geocentric worldview was once deeply anchored in the minds of our ancestors. In the meantime, of course, we know that the Earth is by no means the center of the universe, around which all other celestial bodies revolve. And also the Big Bang Theory does not seem to be incontestable. In fact, it should be mentioned here that the Big Bang Theory is not at all concerned with the Big Bang itself, but describes the early cosmos immediately after its formation. In truth, our present physics is not at all capable of describing the actual Big Bang, let alone the time before it. Among the experts who express their doubts about the current doctrine is Alison Kirkpatrick, the astronomer who is in the employ of the University of Kansas, regards Webb's latest revelations with great unease. According to her, the discovery of surprisingly small, uniform, and ancient galaxies is inconsistent with the explanations of the Big Bang Theory. The Big Bang presupposes that galaxies and other objects in expanding space do not appear smaller with increasing distance, but after a certain point, even larger. Now, however, this fact does not seem to be consistent with the initial Webb images. In fact, the images show that the corresponding structures become smaller and smaller, even those gravitationally bound collections of stars that clearly exceed our Milky Way in terms of mass and luminosity. This unexpected fact leads a few scientists to a revolutionary thesis. The universe is not expanding, and redshift is not proportional to distance. A rigid construct? Albert Einstein believed in a static universe. To reconcile this assumption with his equations, the physicist introduced the cosmological constant, a move the genius would later discard and call the greatest folly of his life. Although the expansion of the cosmos was demonstrated by Edwin Hubble as early as 1929, to this day, some scientists believe that the notion of an expanding universe is nothing more than a vast fallacy. Eric Lerner and Ricardo Scarpa also proposed this unpopular thesis into the field some time ago. Based on Hubble images, the researchers came to the conclusion that the registered redshifts are consistent with the expectations of a non-expanding cosmos. Therefore, the two experts were confident that the Webb telescope images would also provide further evidence for their beliefs. Advocates of the Big Bang Theory had expected in advance that the images would show nearly mangled galaxies, clearly showing signs of mergers and collisions. Reality, however, painted a literally different picture. According to this, the ancient collections of stars present themselves as strikingly uniform structures in the form of disks and spirals, just as is the case with their younger counterparts. In detail, Webb's observations show us 10 times more uniformly shaped ancient galaxies than experts had previously predicted. Enigmatic galaxies. As is well known, the study of remote galaxies is also always like an optical journey through time. Since the light from these collections of stars sometimes traveled billions of years before it reached our terrestrial eyes, we see the corresponding formations today as they appeared in ages long past. According to the Big Bang Theory, the most distant and thus oldest galaxies can be seen on the Webb images as they were about 400 to 500 million years after the formation of the universe. The inexplicable is now, however, the circumstance that some of these formations possess star populations, which are apparently more than 1 billion years old. The conclusion, which some researchers deduce from this mysterious circumstance, is therefore, since nothing can have originated before the Big Bang, the bare existence of these galaxies proves that the often quoted Big Bang never occurred in truth. A look at the papers published so far shows that the Big Bang Theory is by no means flawless, even apart from the Webb recordings. On the contrary, the thesis currently makes 16 incorrect predictions, and only one correct one. Accordingly, the Big Bang prediction for the abundance of helium deviates by a factor of 2. The prediction for the abundance of lithium is off by a factor of 20. Only the abundance of deuterium, an isotope of hydrogen, is correct. In addition to the absence of optical effects due to large distances, There are also structures in the universe which, according to our knowledge, are simply too large to have been formed in the time since the Big Bang. Also, wrong predictions for the density of matter in the universe, as well as inexplicable asymmetries in the cosmic microwave background, seem to shake the Big Bang theory in its foundations. In view of all the alleged contradictions that accompany the hypothesis of the origin of the cosmos, one question arises. Why does this astronomical crisis receive so little attention in the general media? Well, in this respect, the anti-Big Bang advocates see themselves as victims of the prevailing zeitgeist. This means that all experts who seriously question the Big Bang are labeled as ignorant and inept by the rest of the scientific community. What's more, the corresponding work is often dismissed as heretical, and only in the rarest of cases is it supported with funds. The other camp, however, points out that the web recordings are still awaiting full-scale evaluation. It is correct that old galaxies should appear more disrupted than younger, stable galaxies due to their stronger interactions in the previous models. However, it must first be determined how old the structures captured on image actually are. Although the first data point to a very high age, a verifiable analysis must still be completed. Accordingly, it is conceivable that some assumptions will be confirmed and others not. What findings await at the end of this research path is therefore currently still written in the stars. Whether the Big Bang will actually be disproved one day remains to be seen. The biggest explosion in the universe. In 1980, one of the most powerful volcanic eruptions of the 20th century occurred in southern Washington state. As a result of the violent eruption, Mount St. Helens, the entire northern flank of Fire Mountain, slid down like an avalanche. The expert Simona Giansantucci sees certain parallels between the extreme earthly event and a gigantic cosmic explosion registered some time ago in the heart of a far distant galaxy cluster. The center of the galaxy cluster was literally torn apart in the course of the event. In detail, the detonation was the largest explosion ever detected in the universe. How enormous the dimensions of this eruption actually were becomes clear to us if we keep in mind that our home Milky Way would fit into the resulting gap about 15 times over. The explosion, which effortlessly eclipsed all comparable events known so far, occurred in the Ophiuchus galaxy cluster, about 390 million light-years away from us. Besides the galaxies it contains, Ophiuchus also hosts very energetic intergalactic plasma. For this reason, the galaxy cluster presents itself as the second brightest X-ray source in the night sky. The heart of this massive cluster is again a cooler, dense zone. During the detailed investigation of the galaxy cluster, carried out with the Chandra X-ray telescope, experts quickly came across a striking detail, something seemingly incomprehensible. It seemed as if part of the radiating plasma had been dented at the edge. In other words, it appeared as if there was a large empty bubble there, pushing back the surrounding energetic gas. Typically, such holes can form in plasma when a black hole in an active galactic nucleus undergoes an outburst. However, in the case of the Ophiuchus galaxy cluster, the problem arose that it would have taken about 5 times 10 to the power of 54 joules of energy to tear such a huge cavity into the hot gas. For classification, the annual energy consumption of the whole of mankind amounts to about 6 times 10 to the power of 20 joules. Such an enormous intensity would have trumped all explosions measured up to then in the universe by a multiple. But which events could have set such an enormous eruption in motion? In order to get to the bottom of the cause of the huge hole in the plasma, Giansantucci and her colleagues took another in-depth look at the area in question. In the process, the original data from the Chandra X-ray telescope were to be deepened and extended by information from powerful radio telescopes, such as those of the Very Large Array in the United States. The unexpected finding was that the cosmic dent in the plasma was actually the component of a massive radio source. As a result of this surprising research result, experts came to the conclusion that a cosmic explosion of unimagined dimensions must have actually taken place in the Ophiuchus galaxy cluster. Delving into the cause. astronomers immediately crunched the numbers. According to the data, the eruption must have had an intensity that exceeded that of the previous record holder by a factor of 5. Consequently, the explosion was an unprecedented outlier in terms of its force. After the dimensions of the eruption could be put into context, one urgent question had to be answered. What was the trigger of this gigantic detonation? In this respect, researchers assume that it was the explosion of a supermassive black hole in the center of a galaxy that caused the Ophiuchus galaxy cluster to shake. At any rate, the coincidence of the bubble in the X-ray spectrum and the extent of the detected radio data indicate this. In detail, however, these conditions are thought to be the relics of an enormous eruption that might have occurred as long as 240 million years ago. As is often the case, this discovery brought not only revelations, but also posed new questions in the same breath. Among these is the puzzling fact that the galactic nucleus, in which the gigantic explosion might once have taken place, appears remarkably quiet today. No less mysterious is the fact that the experts have only identified one explosion bubble so far. Typically, however, the eruption of a black hole in an active galactic nucleus is accompanied by the formation of symmetrical radio bubbles and jets on both sides of the galactic center. Currently, astronomers suspect that the counterpart of the discovered bubble fell into a less dense medium as a result of the detonation and faded away completely over the millennia. Although there are still many great mysteries to be solved about the largest known explosion in the universe, experts believe it's conceivable that, contrary to initial speculation, this is not an isolated case. Thus, future surveys of galactic clusters could possibly reveal further mega explosions of this magnitude. Monster storm on foreign planet. The highest wind speed which was ever measured on Earth amounts to 254 miles per hour. This terrestrial record was set by the tropical cyclone Olivia, recorded in April 1996 on the west coast of Australia. As enormous these storm intensities may seem at first, they are in truth, however, nothing in comparison with the enormous spectacles which take place on other celestial bodies. Exoplanet HD 209458b made the headlines a few years ago when a real superstorm with wind speeds of up to 6,200 miles per hour occurred there. If we consider that terrestrial storms with a force of 250 miles per hour derail trains and cause massive buildings to collapse like houses of cards, we get a tiny foreshadowing of the enormous forces raging on alien planets. The fact that researchers were able to discover the cosmic storm at all, however, was due to chance. Some scientists unexpectedly became aware of the galactic hurricane when they were using the Very Large Telescope in Chile to study the movement patterns of carbon monoxide in the planet's atmosphere. But how did the monster storm on the exoplanet 160 light-years away from us actually develop? Similar to our blue homeland planet, it was strong temperature differences that set the storm in motion. The celestial body has a bound rotation, which means that it always turns one and the same side towards its host star. The area that's constantly illuminated heats up strongly, while the opposite region, in constant darkness, is accordingly cooler. When the hot gas in the atmosphere on the day side of the exoplanet finally flowed into the realms of the cold night side, the way was paved for the formation of the superstorm. Due to the small spatial distance between the planet and its sun-like central star, which amounts to only 4.3 million miles, the thermometer on the surface of the celestial body climbs regularly to over 1,292 degrees Fahrenheit. Accordingly, the planet, which is unofficially also called Osiris, needs only 3.5 days to completely orbit its ancestral star. The strong heating of the exoplanet leads further to the fact that it loses up to 500,000 tons of hydrogen to the surrounding space within a single second. In fact, the celestial body even has an atmospheric tail consisting of hydrogen, which trails behind the exoplanet over a length of 124,000 miles. Experts assume, therefore, that the planet has already lost 7% of its original mass over the course of its 5 billion years of existence. Beyond that, the planet has become the subject of scientific interest for several reasons. For in fact, HD 209458b was the first exoplanet in history detected by the Transit method in 1999. As a reminder, the transit method is a way of detecting planets in which the planet in question is not observed directly, but detected by examining the brightness profile of its host star. In 2007, experts announced that they had succeeded in registering enormous amounts of water vapor in the atmosphere of the celestial body with the help of the Hubble Space Telescope. This made HD 209458b the first planet outside our home solar system on which water had been detected. However, the initially identified water vapor spectra could not be confirmed in the course of subsequent research. Now you're up. What are your thoughts about the huge explosion and the roaring storm on the alien planet? Go ahead and give us your feedback, your suggestions, and your opinion to today's video in the comments. Finally, we've linked some more exciting videos from our channel for you, which you can access by clicking on one of the thumbnails in the credits now. Thanks a lot for watching. Take care, and we'll see you next time.